Hi friends, it's Becky, and I am still making beaded chains because it seems like once I start, I cannot stop. I did take a little break this week to make a strung necklace, but I am so full of ideas that I keep having to continuously make them. So today I am going to be doing some little beaded links that I have made using some of the beads. Whoop, where'd you go, buddy? Using some of the beads from the Curated Collections from Beads to Live By. I'm using some of the 2-hole beads and some of the seed beads because there are 2 subscriptions. One is the Seed Beads Curated Collection, and the other one is the 2-hole beads Curated Collection. And these are silky beads and the mini chevrons that I'm using for these. But I'm also, in addition to making these links, I'm going to make a little focal with y'all that looks a little bit like this, and I'm going to do all of this using wire, not with bead weaving with string, beading thread and a needle. I'm going to use this 26 gauge wire to do this focal and all of those links to make a necklace. This was the July Curated Collection. I went ahead and made one of these ahead of time just so that I could make sure that my idea for a focal would actually work. And I love it. I love having 2 different colors for this. This was the August Curated Collection, and the September Curated Collections are going to be shipping out in a couple of weeks. If you want to subscribe in order to get the September ones, I'll put a link in the description below to where you can find out about the Curated Collections, and you can buy all of these beads individually without being a subscriber. You just get a discount of buying all the beads together in the Curated Collection, and also you don't have to pick the beads out yourself. Cassandra does that for you. So I've got some 26 gauge wire. So I'm going to do the focal with y'all first, and then we'll do these links because these links are really easy. They are super simple links, and so we'll get to those first. This one is the more I guess complex part. I've got some flush cutters for cutting my wire, and when I make my links, I'm going to be using some chain nose pliers and round nose pliers, and then I'm going to put my links together with some jump rings, and I've got a little lobster clasp that I pulled out of my stash for this. Alright, so let me pull off the wire that I'm going to be using. Let's see, about let's start with about 22 inches of wire. I think this is going to be enough. I wish I had measured it when I did my other one, but I didn't. I just said this feels like it'll be enough, and this kind of feels like it'll be enough for this. If it isn't, we can add more. Or I can start this entire video over and we can have more right from the beginning. Alright, so for my focal, again, I've got 6 of these mini chevrons. I've got 6 silky beads. These are for the links. And then I'm going to be using some 6-0 seed beads. These came in the Seed Bead Curated Collection in this really lovely raspberry color. And then I've got these 11-0 seed beads, again in kind of a raspberry color, but with an AB finish on them. Oof, come on, buddy. And I pulled out the silkies had different colors in them. They were like a metallic mix, and I pulled out the reddest ones just for the focal so that they're all together like that. Now, we're going to start this focal by making the center first. So let me pull this up so that we've got a little bit of a guide to look at with this. We're going to be making this center first. So we're going to be going through the silkies, through the chevrons, adding these beads, and then after that we'll jump up to the second hole of the silkies and just go around like that. Because I'm using the wire and not beading thread for this, I don't need to do any reinforcing. The wire, see, it's nice and stiff, it's not going anywhere. If you are going to follow these thread paths and use a beading needle for this, because I think this would look great as a bead woven pendant as well, you'll want to reinforce this outer ring probably several times by going through it again. And you'll also want to reinforce the middle ring if you do this with bead weaving. And if you do, go ahead and pop an extra 6/0 in between each of these points when you reinforce it. Or maybe like a 3mm firepolish bead or something like that. Maybe some bicones. Whatever you put in there to pop between them to reinforce that center point, that's going to help with the stability. But if you're using wire, you don't have to worry about that. And that's why I'm using wire today. That's to make it a little bit easier. All right. So I've got my wire, and you know what? This is not going to be enough. Let me pull off a little bit more. I'm just realizing it's definitely not going to be enough. All right. Now I'm just holding this end up to my left shoulder and stretching my right hand out, and that gives me an arm's length of wire. And if I have extra wire, that's fine because I can use it on my links. You only need about this much wire for a link. All right, I'm gonna go down into the middle-ish of this. I'm gonna want plenty of space to go around. Or am I? How about there? All right, now I already double checked all of my silkies and my chevron beads to make sure that both holes are clear. When you have check glass 2-hole beads, sometimes one of the holes will get a little plugged. So you always want to check before you start that both of the holes are clear. You can do it while you're stringing them just by poking into the first one and then going through the second one. But I checked beforehand so that we would be ready. So now I've got this going through one of the holes in my silky, and these silkies don't have a right side and a wrong side. Some silky beads have a bump on one side, but these are flat on both sides, so it doesn't matter which hole I go through for this. After I go through my silky bead, I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead and go through my mini chevron. Now the chevrons have 2 holes on each leg, but they have a point at one end. So I'm going to go into one of the holes on the pointy side of the chevron so that it ends up kind of pointing towards my my silky when it's on there. Now this is going to end up bending, so I'm just going to give it a little help right now by bending it right there like that. That way I don't have to do that later. And I'm going to pinch both of these so that they don't move on the wire when I get to the next part. And that next part is going to be picking up one of these 6/0 seed beads, moving it down here, and it's going to sit right there at the top of this chevron. So I'm going to want to get my wire through the second hole of this chevron, and this is the tricky bit because it's very easy when you're doing something like this to kink your wire. So I'm going to go slowly and carefully and continue to kind of help guide it so it doesn't kink that wire there. That's that first part. Now I'm going to grab a 11/0, go through another silky bead, and again it doesn't matter which hole, and then pick up an 11/0. Scooch this guy all the way down there, and I'm going to bend it up like that so that it's next to the other one and ready to go. So let's do our chevron 8/0 jazz thing. I want to go in through the pointy side, one of the pointy side holes. Where are you going, buddy? Grab one of these guys. I'm going to move this down next to my silky before I do anything else. I'm just going to switch my thumb so that I'm holding on to that. I'm keeping that steady while I get my wire through that second hole of the chevron. Once again, it's very easy to kink it when it loops like this. It's going to get kinked. So slowly, slowly, it's starting to bend a little too much. There we go. I'm just giving it a little bit of a tug to make sure that it's going to fit nicely. And this is going to be a little loosey-goosey until we get through and do our second round. That's fine, as long as they can be next to each other like this. And I'm going to continue that all the way around to the other side. When I get almost to the end, I'm going to show you how we link those two ends together and then step up to the outside edge. So I'm going to continue that same thing all the way around, and I'll meet you back here when we get. Okay, so looks a little bit of a mess, but that's okay. I had to set it down to turn this back on. So let's pick it back up. And I have all 6 sets of beads on here. My 6 silkies, my 6 chevrons, and my 6 6/0 seed beads. And I am just putting my last little bit into place. And I'm bending it up to where it needs to be to meet up with this other bit of wire that is maybe a little too long. That's fine. So now that those are all curved up and around to make a little bit of a circle, I'm going to want to still go through this second hole of this mini chevron. And to do that, I'm going to pinch these beads so they don't move, and slide down along so that I've got extra space. It's a little bit harder to tighten up with wire after the fact, so you want to make sure that they are right next to where they need to be before you start going through a hole. So once you finish going through that hole, that wire is going to kind of stay where it's at. All right, so now I need to get this wire through this hole. And I'm just going to move this wire a little bit out of the way by scooching up to the second hole in the silky first before we put the other one through. Okay, so that's up and out of the way. So now I need this to be going through that other silky. Let's scooch this guy a little bit closer so it curves easier. And tighten that up. But I need to grab an 11/0 first because my little 11/0s are my cushion between my chevrons and the silkies. So now that I've got my 11/0 over here, I can go through this, I guess, centermost hole. It's closer to the center of this design on this silky. And it's got 2 passes of the 26 gauge wire. One of the reasons I'm using 26 and not 24 is so that I can do 2 passes through some of these holes with this wire. All right, this is again one of those places where you're going to want to guide your wire. And once it goes through, you can readjust some of these shapes. They will readjust when we go through the outer side as well. But I'm going to want this wire to be coming out of this other hole, the second hole on my silky. So I'm going to have it go through there like this. And again, make sure it doesn't kink or bend weird. Go slow. There we go. So I'm going to just kind of ignore this wire for a little while, and I'm going to use this other wire to go all the way around one more time. And yeah, I guess I could have done this a little bit smaller to begin with. Now with my July bead necklace on the outside of here, I went ahead and used these like 7.5mm fire polish beads to go around here. I didn't have any 7.5 fire polish beads from my August curated collection, but I did have some of these in my bead stash, and they are some 7.5mm fire polish beads. They're exactly the same size, they're just a different color. So I'm going to go ahead and use these for my embellishment. You could use smaller beads if you maybe, instead of using a 11-0 and then the fire polish and then 11-0, maybe with a smaller bead you could do a 6-0, the smaller bead, and a 6-0. We're just trying to bridge this gap between these top holes on our silkies, and these make a fantastic bridge. I'm going to move my 6-0s out of the way because I'm not using them for this. So I got myself an 11-0, a 6-0, and an 11-0, like that. And then we're going to go through that, just that outer hole on that next silky. Again, go slow, you don't have to go fast. Make sure we're not kinking our wire. Make sure we're not twisting. You need to scooch these closer to the other wire, or maybe I've got too much bend now. There we go. I just need that to be there so that when I pull it through, it fits just perfectly. All right, so same thing all the way around. And there's only 6 of these, so I'm not going to turn the camera off and come back. We're just going to do all of them together. This round gives you a lot of stability on this design, so don't skip it. But you can play around with those beads that you add in here. I think anywhere up to like a 10mm bead will fit in there. Like you could just do a 10mm bead without adding the 11-0s. I'm just giving it a little bit of a tug to tighten it. I don't want to pull too hard because I don't want to snap my wire. Let's see how that just pulls all of that together. It's going to do it all the way around. Move out of the way. Wire clippers. Whoop. 1 11-0 on each end, not 2 11-0s on each end. It's like I forgot the big bead in there. There we go. We're going to keep going all the way around. Until we get to this spot right here. And then there's just going to be something a little bit different that we do there to finish this up and turn it into like a proper pendant. go. All right, so here on this part, I'm going to pick up a, got one more of those, an 11-0, the fire polish bead, and on this wire I'm just putting those two on, and on the second wire here I'm going to pick up an 11-0 on that second wire, and I'm going to go through that same fire polish bead but in the opposite direction, and it's only the fire polish bead, not the 11-0 that I want to go through. And let's be gentle again to not get any kinks in there. Come on, buddy. I'm going to pull on both of these. There we go. You can see how that helped space it out nicely, especially on these middle part. You can finesse it if you want. Readjust some of these so that they sit a little more evenly. But again, you don't have to go back through and reinforce anything because you're using wire. I'm going to take both ends of my wire up above the work, and I'm going to just pinch them both right here into the middle of that. Pinched right there. And I'm going to take my round nose pliers and grab both of those wires. I'm going to bend it over the top of the round nose pliers and then rotate them so that I can bring this around the top and make myself a little loop with both of those wires again. And I can either leave it on my pliers while I do this or pull it off, but I'm going to just make myself a wrap down to that bead. Cut off my excess. And yeah, I guess I did pull off a little too much. But again, if you pull off a little too much, you can use this wire for your links, because it does not take very much wire for the links. About, let's see, 5 inches. Yeah, that's how much we use for the links when we're making them. And of course I'm going to do those links with you now that I've got my focal done. We're using the same beads for these. We've got our silky beads and our mini chevrons, and I'm making 2 different types of links. We're going to use one with the silkies and a totally different link with the chevrons, but they go together pretty well, I think. Let me, I've got a little bit of a pokey outy wire there, so I'm just going to tuck that in using my chain nose pliers. There we go. I'm going to set this aside so that I can use it to put together my necklace in a minute. Now, I did make several of these links ahead of time, so I'm just going to demonstrate each of these different link types for you real quick. Let me cut off from my extra wire there just a second length of wire. So the first one is the silkies. I'm going to take my little piece of wire. If I bend it in a U shape, it's going to make it a lot easier for me to find the middle. And once I find the middle, I'm going to about the middle of my round nose pliers, I'm going to grasp it there with those. And then I'm going to cross the wires over right there like that. And then while it's crossed, I'm going to put one finger underneath one side, one finger over the other, and just spin it around like a propeller and about 2 or 3 times, something like that. And that makes my first loop for my link. I think this might be a little too bright, might be making it a little more difficult to see. It is a light colored wire, so okay. And this is the silky one, right? Okay, so on each of these wires, I'm going to pick up an 11/0, a 6/0, and an 11/0. Like that. I'm going to do it on each of the ends of the wires coming out. Bloop. Kind of bring them together-ish a little bit. And then I'm going to stick each end of this wire through one of the holes in the silkies. Because there are 2 holes, they run parallel. So they can just go straight up like that. And I can slide my silky down next to my beads. Then I'm going to repeat that same pattern on the other side of this link with the seed beads with an 11/0, a 6/0, and 11/0. And these are super quick and super simple, super easy to make. It does not take that long to make enough for a necklace. You could do a necklace with just these links. You don't have to do both types of links. You could do a bracelet with these links. I think that would work pretty well too. So I need to make a loop on the other side, and to do that, I'm just going to pinch these 2 together with my fingers, grab my round nose pliers, fold that over the top, and just like I did with the bail on the pendant, I'm bringing it around to the other side. I'm just going to do a couple of wraps with both ends of that wire, like that. So one end of the link just has a single pass of wire, and the other end of the link has a double pass. That's just the nature of this type of link. Oh. Be careful when you are going to clip your excess that you're cutting just that wire and not the loops. Almost cut through that. And when you're tucking your ends in, be careful that you don't crush your beads. There we go. So that's one with the silkies. Now let's do the one with the chevrons. And after I make this link with y'all, we'll put it together. Once more, same thing, find the center by putting it into a U shape. And then once you've got that center, draw your wire over the top so that it crosses. And just spin those around. And the reason I'm leaving this on the round nose pliers is because when I do this twist, it tightens up the loop. And if it's still on the round nose pliers, it won't tighten it too much. It won't like eliminate the loop when I do that. All right, now for this, I want these 2 wires to be together for a good part of this. It doesn't matter that there's a little bit of a sticky outy bit right here at the top of that. That's good because it's going to stop our 11/0 from sliding all the way down to where the loop is. Because I'm going to start with an 11/0. You want to go through with both ends of the wire through the same 11/0. Go in with both ends of the wire through the same 6/0. And then we're going to separate these just a little bit, just to give them some room. And on each end of my wire, I'm going to put one 11/0. So one 11/0 on that end, one 11/0 on that end, like that. So it makes kind of a V or a Y. Now I'm going to take my chevrons, and I want the pointy end of my chevron to be pointing away from my loop so that the, I guess, inner point is where we're going to go into our chevron. It's going to sit like a little hat over our seed beads like that. And then on each wire, I'm going to put 1/60. So 1/60 on that wire, 1/60 on that wire. And then I'm going to put my second chevron on the wire. And this time again, I want the pointy end to be pointing away from the other loop that I haven't made yet. So it's going to just point towards these 6/0s. So for this one, we're going to go into the pointy end. Like that. All right, now 1/11 on each wire. So 1/11 on that wire, 1/11 on that wire. And then we're going to put both wires through the same 6/0. We're basically reversing what we started at the beginning. And you might need to pinch both ends of the wire together a little bit closer for this next bit, because I'm going to be putting a single 11/0 on both ends. That brings them both together very nicely for me to be able to make another loop. Again, these are pretty quick, pretty easy to make, but they look way more complicated. They look really like fancy. But you don't have to do any, don't have to know any sort of bead weaving to do this. And I'm just bending it back that way, and then bringing this over and around the top, rotating my pliers, bring it all the way around, and then wrap it around that stem. Just a couple of times will work. And again, be careful that you're not clipping the loop when you clip your excess wire. All right. And now comes the part where we put everything together. So let me get these beads out of the way real quick. Pull out our MVPs. And that is these guys. All right, I'm gonna need to open up and close some jump rings. For this necklace, I made 4 of the chevron links for each side and 3 of the silky links. You can choose however many you'd like. But that's how I'm going to be putting them all together. So let's get that started. I'm using some 5mm jump rings. You could use 4mm. Really anything that will link them together will be great. And so I'm just going to twist these apart and then link like that. I already linked together one end of my necklace, so you're not going to have to sit here and watch me do all of them, all 14 links that I made, because it's 7 on one side, 7 on the other. But we'll put these two to this side together, and then we will be almost done. But yeah, these are links with 2-hole beads, and I think it's pretty fun to make them like that. I've done other links with 2-hole beads, but for those ones I did it using bead weaving. I'll put a link to that video in the description below if you'd like to watch that one. I've also done a beaded links with bead weaving, just using some firepolish beads and some seed beads. So this is my wire and 2-hole beads design. All right, so like I said, I already did one of my strands like that. Let's get those connected to the pendant that we just made. This guy right there. I think it looks like a snowflake actually, and like this seems like a very, very snowflakey, snow time sort of a necklace, but this is like warmer with the pinks and the golds. Maybe it's a little more autumny. All right, but I will put a link to the curated collections. If you sign up before the 13th of the month, then you'll get that month's collections in your subscriptions. And I don't know if you've seen some of the colors. Cassandra posts a preview of the check glass bundles, and that usually gives you a pretty good idea of what kind of colors and what kind of vibe you're going to get with that month's curated collection. So you might check that out. It's a little more on the spooky season side of things, so if you are a spooky girl or guy who likes spooky things, then you might want to get signed up for that before we get there. If you just like dark, moody things, that's kind of the mood that we're getting with that one, which sounds fantastic to me. I'm ready for that. Ready for fall, ready for spooky things. And I just used a jump ring to connect my lobster clasp to the other end. And I'm just going to attach a jump ring to the other side there, so that when I close my clasp, I'm looping onto the jump ring and not onto the loop that I made on my link. There we go. And that is a completed beaded chain necklace. I think my goal was 2 beaded chain necklaces each week, and I've made 4. So, I mean, if you count this one too, I guess that's even more than that. So I said at least. I did give myself permission to make more, but like I said, I love curated collections. I love having beads show up at my house that I didn't have to pick the colors out for, but I already know that they are 100% gonna go together. And like, that's what this one was, and that's what this one was, and they absolutely did go together for each of these separate months. Anyway, I hope you learned something. I hope you had fun. Let me know if you're going to try this. I would love to see some of the stuff that you make. If you're in the Beads in Progress group on Facebook and you make some of these, go ahead and post that there. I would love to see them. That's Cassandra's group for the curated collections. Anyway, I hope to see you later. Have a great day, and happy beading. Bye.